I would say for new freshmen coming into UAF, to know your resources is what the best thing you can do for yourself. There's a lot of assistance available for various reasons that you might need them, whether that's mental health, whether that's financial aid, whether that's even just figuring out how to write better papers. There's always something available, and it's very important to know how to access those resources as well as how to best use them in order to give yourself an advantage as you're entering difficult coursework throughout the course of your program. And that would be probably the most helpful thing you can do for yourself. I really like anthropology because I think it's highly versatile. I think you can take the degree and in general apply it towards so many avenues depending on where you want to go. And as a fairly indecisive person, that was kind of my first instinctual draw to it. The idea that you can get this bachelor's degree and then take it and work for the National Park Service, or take it and apply to medical school, or go to law school. There's just so many facets that you can dive into underneath that entire broad umbrella of the field. And on top of that, it's also, as a huge bonus, incredibly interesting. Every aspect of anthropology I've taken, linguistics, biological, medical, you name it, every single aspect I've taken has been always so fascinating. And they've also tied into other classes that I've taken for my minor or just out of personal interest. So I just love overall how versatile the program is, as well as how many different perspectives you can get from it. And it's just, I think it's a very rewarding way to go. Once I graduate, I really want to find a good grad program, and I'm not 100% certain on exactly what I'm going to study. I know I am leaning heavily towards biological anthropology. I think there's a lot of ways, again, that you can take that. I really like genetics and I'm drawn to it. Also, as well as evolutionary theory work, I'm drawn to that as well. So I hope to endeavor on something that can eventually get me to the point of being a researcher, earning my doctorate, and ultimately even one day maybe becoming a professor, because I think the idea of mentorship is really exciting. In the meantime, I'm going to continue with the current work that I do right now, but ultimately the goal would be to get into a good grad program. I've been really lucky to have a lot of good positive reactions with several professors at UAF. I'd say that I can't really pick one in particular because all three have been really significant to me. Dr. Elaine Drew, as my advisor, has always been very positive and reassuring about my academic goals and where I want to go. And she's even sat down and played devil's advocate with me and tried to help me better sort of sleuth out exactly what I want to do. And then I'd also say Dr. Seth Jones, he's my advisor for my philosophy minor. He's always just been very good about looking out for students, making sure they understand what they're doing, and just kind of also, again, listening to them, which is so helpful. And then last, and definitely not least, I'd say Dr. Kara Hoover. Whenever I talk to her, I always thought, like, I want your job. I want to do what you do. You inspire me. And we would have these fantastic long Zoom and email chats because there were so many things I didn't understand. And she's really smart, and sometimes she would explain it at such a level I needed her to bring it down for me to layman's terms, and she was fantastic at it. And I just love professors that are willing to really engage with me about things that I don't understand and actually take the time to explain them to me. And if anything, that's going to not only benefit me as a student, but as someone who wants to continue on in academia, I kind of feel inspired to do that for other people and to make information more accessible. So it's kind of a two-part helpfulness there that I got from all three of them overall. And I'm just really grateful because it feels like I felt really supported and believed in, which was really refreshing and nice from three totally different avenues of people that studied different things, and that was great. So I did receive a scholarship back in fall of 2021 called the Dr. Joseph Thomas Memorial Hospital Scholarship. It was only for one semester, but it helped me out significantly because I was worried about covering book costs, and it was a hard time outside of school for me to try to make ends meet. And I was really lucky to get that, and it really provided me a lot of relief because, as everyone knows, if you're stressed out about what's in your wallet, you can't focus on anything else going on, no matter how hard you try. And throughout my time at UAF, I've also been using the Alaska State Tuition Assistance through the Air National Guard. So that's been also a huge help in allowing me to get through the entire university program unhindered by financial worries. So it's been a careful balance along the way, but it's been really, really helpful to have those sort of means of helping lift you through the program. One of my most proudest moments at UAF was, oddly enough, conquering a statistics course. I personally am not strong at math, and statistics is not required for the Bachelor's of Arts Anthropology program. However, I, for one, would argue that it should be because of how heavily used statistics is anthropology. So thanks to the help of my advisor, I decided to take it, and it was far more challenging than I could have thought it was. And I also was in the middle of doing a full-time career change outside of that with my work. And so everything was all overwhelming at once. And somehow, thanks to tutors that I used through TRIO Student Services, I was able to understand the concepts, and I was able to pass the class, and I was even able to do well in that class. And that feeling was fantastic, to know that all of that work, all of that effort, and actually trying to understand the content really paid off at the end. And it goes back to, again, you have to know your resources. And thankfully, I knew that I had a tutor available who I could bug maybe once a week for about an hour or two just to really help me get through it. And that was just a really fantastic feeling to get through and eventually see that final exam pass. I would say the biggest challenge I faced throughout my time at UAF came from influences external to academics. So sure, little things proved challenging along the way, like not having Wi-Fi at home, being primarily an online student, especially after COVID, was really hard, combined with, of course, the influences of a global pandemic and extensive stress that followed all of those things at once. Living in Alaska, of course, as we all know who live here, proves some very specific challenges, not just financially, but also even mentally, to do with the seasonal changes, as well as friends moving out of the area. When you're like me, you don't have any family here, it's really hard to watch people come and go so frequently, and it's all a kind of a strain on an individual's sanity. And I really faced that, not having the steadiness that I was kind of used to growing up, and then coming to Alaska and having now all these friends that are coming and going, trying to make ends meet, also trying to just enjoy myself and actually have free time and enjoy the state a little bit. Once I became much better at managing my time and understanding the challenges that I had to overcome as they came at me, I really had this perspective of one thing at a time. Let's get this done. Let's move on to the next thing. And I think dividing out all of those scenarios and kind of compartmentalizing them in a little bit more of a digestible way is what really allowed me to overcome all of the difficulties that came in various formats outside of academics that did influence my experience in academics. Something that might be interesting that people don't know about me is that I love reading, collecting, and writing poetry. Poetry is very near and dear to my heart, and until someone comes to my cabin and sees the collection of poetry books, papers, and scribbles of poems, they're not going to really know that part about me, and not many people come to a dry cabin, so I don't have a lot of visitors that know that part about me. And I think that because I have a very technical job outside of academics and being a student. I'm an in-flight refueler for the Air National Guard, and that's a very technical job. It's very empirically based information, and everything is by a checklist. And I think that because of that, a lot of people automatically assume that I am a very technical sort of person and not a very emotional sort of person. But I am very much in love with poetry. Overall, it's a passion I've had since I was young, and I continue to seek it out all the time, and I just really enjoy it. And I don't think a lot of people realize or even think to ask that. And I, of course, am not broadcasting it, so it's there. I think that being a roundabout student is what really makes someone stand out in a classroom, in academics in general. So it's just one thing if you're the kind of student who's there just to get through it and get it over with, plug and play that information, and then just kind of dump it with minimum engagement and effort. But it's another to actually go out of your way to try to understand what the professor is saying and to really thoroughly digest it and ask those questions, explore those perspectives, even not just of your professors and the content that they're presenting, but also your fellow classmates, because they're incredibly valuable for what they have to offer coming from their own diverse backgrounds. So in terms of what made me stand out, I think is my level of engagement personally. Whenever I'm encountering the content from my professors, I often reach out if I don't understand something, or even if I find something that links to what they're talking about, I'll typically send it to them and just say, hey, look at this. This is kind of cool. So that sort of activeness and that attentiveness to the material that you're being put in front of, and also even just discussion boards and things like that, I think that's really good in terms of standing out. And I think that I did that quite a bit throughout my time at UAF. And I was always very enthusiastic to talk to other students and kind of observe their views. Because again, everyone's perspective is extremely valuable. So it's really good if you can be the kind of student who is willing to embrace that, and it is a challenge, but to really take it on. Even the classes you don't think are entirely applicable to what you want to do, there's always something that can tie in, even if it's the smallest statement from a paper you read in a geography class. Somehow that will come in handy later on when you're looking at a map in anthropology and you think that map is misshapen because of this reasoning that I learned from this other class. So things like that. It's all about actively engaging with the content, and that really makes you a better student, and it really just makes you more open-minded in general, I think. My biggest takeaway from college is to maintain open-mindedness. My favorite aspect of being in this program, and even just being at UAF, even though it is a small school, encountering a high level of diversity has been the best part about it. So many people come here from a lot of different places, even across the state. They're still thousands of miles away from us. It's just a matter of everyone is coming from a different walk of life, and every single person always has something to offer. So even when I came into the course, and sometimes, as a young 20-some-year-old, I was always catching myself being a little closed-minded or being very solid with my point of view. Having such a diverse experience caused that to be a little bit challenged. It revealed new interpretations of information I had previously kind of taken for granted. And as I go forward with life, work, and furthering my education, I hope to carry forward that sort of awareness and that acceptance of how valuable and refreshing other people's insights can be. And that's been probably the biggest takeaway that I think I could have even asked for. It's a great thing to have gained from the program.